Gentlemen, what is going on today? My name is Ryan Mickler. I'm your host and the founder of the Order of Man podcast and movement. Welcome here today. Glad you're tuning in. It really doesn't matter to me how long you've been here. Some of you guys have been around for almost 8 years now, which is unbelievable to think about how long we've been going. Some of you guys have been with us for 8 minutes or 30 seconds because this is your first time listening to this podcast. But if you are, this is a podcast and a movement dedicated to helping you become a better man. So we give you information and tools and guidance and resources and tools and also conversations via this podcast with incredible men like Terry Crews and Tim Tebow and Jocko Willink and Tim Kennedy and David Goggins and the other 460 or so men who have been on the podcast, all of which have valuable information to share. So if you've been around for any amount of time, listen to a couple of podcasts, do me a real quick favor if you would, and the movement as well, and drop a rating and review wherever you're listening to this podcast. I know it doesn't seem like much, and sometimes when it doesn't seem like much, we think maybe we won't do it. But if all of you just went in and left a rating and review, it'd mean a big deal. I kind of look at it as lifting a little bit. Sometimes we think, well, if I miss one workout, it's not going to be a big deal. Or if I get one workout in and that's all I have time for this week, it's not that big a deal. Maybe, but when you string them all together and you are consistent in going to the gym or consistent in not missing your days, that adds up. And those little seemingly insignificant moments in time compound and equal something great. So yeah, maybe your one review is not that big a deal, but if 10,000 of you left a review, that would be a big deal. So that's what I asked today. Outside of that, we're going to be opening up our exclusive brotherhood, the Iron Council, in June. So it's May 29th as of this recording. I think this comes out on June 1st or 2nd. So the Iron Council will open up here in the next couple of weeks. Head to orderofman.com/Iron Council. You can be the first to be notified when we open up in mid-June. All right, guys, let's get to it. Today is our Ask Me Anything. Normally, I have Kip Sorensen, my good friend and co-host here on the podcast on Wednesdays. He is building his home in Utah, and we are going to excuse him. We'll allow him a pass because I think he's getting close to building, and he's building a lot of the home on his own, him and his family, so we'll let him go ahead and take care of that, okay? I'm going to field some questions from Instagram. I posed this the other day, and by the way, you can follow me on Instagram at Ryan Mickler. And let's just get into it. I took some notes, so if you're watching the video, you're going to see me bouncing back and forth between my notes that I have right here, my Instagram account, and back here with you guys. So bear with me. The first one comes from my good friend Endurance Lifted. He said, struggling right now with building a business too, actually, and being consumed with worry, finances at home and in the business, my youngest going off to college and trying to be present in my marriage. Sounds like he's got a ton going on, like we all do. No time, no close friends, and no idea how I'm going to make all of this work without losing it all. Some days are good, most days are hard. One of the loneliest and hardest times of my life, and that's saying something. Questioning my sanity, and so is everyone else. So other people are questioning his sanity as well. How do you keep your sanity and your family intact? Well, here's what I would say. Number one, we need to evaluate what we're doing and ensure that what we are doing and what we are consuming with our time is moving us in the right direction. And the right direction has nothing to do with what I think, has nothing to do with what culture or society tells you. It has everything to do with what you think and also what your family thinks. Your family is important because you made commitments to them, but everything else doesn't really matter. So you have to ask yourself, is this the right thing to be doing? Not by cultural or societal standards, but by your own and by your family standards. And if it is, now we need to figure out a way to go from there. I only preface it with that because sometimes I see a lot of men following different advice, following a bunch of Instagram accounts, doing things that other people are doing because they think they should or are supposed to be doing those things. And that leads to a lot of disaster, a lot of heartache and frustration. So make sure you're chasing your dreams, not mine, not anybody else's that you may follow. Now, assuming you are, here's what I would say. You might need to evaluate what you can cut out in your life. And there's things you can't, right? You probably are not going to cut out your family. And I would advise that you not do that. You're probably not going to cut out, if you're spiritually inclined, you're not going to cut out that sort of thing. There might be some hobbies though. in this period of time, they need to go. Maybe you really like to go to the gym 2 hours per day. I don't know if that's the case. I know you're strong. I know you're fit. And so maybe that suffers a little bit right now. So you put 2 hours in, maybe you don't put 2 hours in. Maybe you get an hour or you get 45 minutes a day. And what that does is that frees up another hour or 45 minutes or whatever it may be to be able to focus on your two businesses that you're trying to grow. I would also make sure that you're communicating effectively with what's going on with regards to your business and your stress levels with your wife. There is a lot of thought and a lot of information out there for guys, and I don't really agree with this. Actually, I don't agree with it at all, that says that you shouldn't share some of your struggles and what you're dealing with, some of the emotional and mental turmoil or hardship that you're dealing with your spouse, because in some ways or in some circles, they believe it makes you appear weaker. I don't think that's the case at all. I may have said that 2 years ago. I really don't think that's the case. I think she partnered with you. She wants to hear about you and what's going on and what you're afraid of and what you're scared of and what you're glad about and what's going on and what's keeping you up at night. She wants to know all that stuff, guys. She truly does. Now, if you're just going to whine and bitch and moan and complain, yeah, that's going to get old pretty quick. But that's not what I'm telling you to do. I'm suggesting that you open up. And that's really hard to do. I've had to open up in a lot of ways over the past several weeks, several months, several years. And it's not comfortable and it's not fun. It's vulnerable and it makes you feel weak in a lot of ways. But I'm telling you, she wants to hear how things are going. So talk with her about it. Hey, here's what I'm afraid of. Here's my concerns. Here's my fears. But here's what I'm doing about it. The other thing I would suggest in these conversations is that you talk about boundaries and what you will and won't do. You talk about time frames. Hey, this is going to be going on for 3 to 4 months. And you have a plan to make sure it is 3 to 4 months, because 4 months rolls around and all of a sudden it's like, hey, hon, it's going to be another 3 months and another 3 months and another 3 months. And then it's been 2 years and you're acting like the same guy that you were 2 years prior. So make sure that you have a timetable in place. You're communicating with her frequently. You're letting her know what's going on. And if you open up to her in that kind of way, I was going to say she's going to be more forgiving. That's not actually what I want to say. She's going to be more understanding and she's going to be an ally. She cares about you, bro. She wants you to win, partly because if you win, she wins, but also because she loves you. And if you shut her out, you don't tell her what's going on, you don't communicate with her, you don't give her a timetable, and you keep her in the dark, she's going to draw a lot of assumptions. And generally when we draw assumptions, they aren't positive ones. So make sure you communicate with her effectively. I hope that helps. All right, brother. Good luck. Let me know if you need anything else. The next one is from Justin, my good friend Justin out in Maine. He moved to Maine about maybe 2 years ago or so. JJ Taylor Studio. He moved to Maine from Utah. He's a good friend of mine. He says, will I ever see you again on the mats in Maine? Many of you know I'm no longer in Maine. I'm in southern Utah, which is where I live now. And yes, the answer is yes. You will see me again on the mats in Maine. Trying to get out to Origin's immersion camp. And if you aren't following Origin, make sure you do. They make durable goods, 100% made and sourced in America. Pretty good at the segues on these sponsorships, by the way. It's not just a sponsorship. These guys are friends. But yeah, 100% made and sourced in America. They make gis, rash guards, denim, jeans, boots, you name it. They make it. Check them out. Okay. So you will see me back, Justin, without a doubt. Next one comes from Run With Brad. He says, is there a book you would recommend along with the Bible to help with your walk as a Christian? My good friend Scott Davis chimed in on this one. He said, hey, I can't speak for Ryan, but Wild at Heart was the most transformative book of my life. And Scott nails that one. If you guys have not read Wild at Heart by John Eldredge, and I don't care if you are religious or Christian or spiritual or not, you better read that book. You're listening to this podcast, you want to be a better man. That book, as it has with Scott, he says here, literally transformed my life. It crystallized and made more tangible, more recognizable a lot of the thoughts or at least feelings that I had as a man, but I couldn't quite put my finger on what in the world was going on. So I've had John on the podcast a couple of times. John Eldredge, Wild at Heart. I don't need to say anything else. Just read the book. Just read the book, and then we can talk more about it. All right, let's go to, scroll down here. This one comes from Sarah Jo Soul Purpose. She says, how is sobriety and how can I support your journey? So Sarah, number one, I appreciate the concern. I appreciate the consideration. For those of you who have been listening for the last year or longer, you know I've been on a walk with sobriety over the past 9 months, and I can tell you that it's going really well. I've been sober for 9 months, roughly. I don't know the exact time frame. I could calculate it. I believe August 1st of 2022 is my sobriety date. And I can tell you it's going really well. Man, I have more energy than I've ever had. I have more focus, more determination, more drive, more ambition. I've got the energy to back it up and support it. I've had people message me that listen to the podcast. I have guys in the Iron Council, our exclusive brotherhood, tell me that it's good to see me back. I feel really good, all things considered. So, sobriety's well. I know a lot of you guys are drinking, and I know that because message me. And I'm not opposed to drinking. I really am not. You know, if you want to have a drink and you want to loosen up a little bit, or it's a nice way to unwind at the end of the week, I can't drink, because if I do, then I'll say it this way. If I have one drink, I want all the drinks. And I know that about myself, and it's important to recognize that about ourselves. I've had I've had some people say, well, you know, that's not being very disciplined. I don't care, okay? I don't care. If people say, well, you know, you should be able to have a drink without getting drunk. I don't care what you think. I don't care that you think maybe it's not disciplined. You know what I care about? Results. And I know myself well enough that I put systems and processes in place to ensure that I don't do dumb shit, and to ensure that I do things that are going to improve my life. So if you come at me and you say to me, well, you know, that's not disciplined. A disciplined man should be able to have a drink and not get drunk. I don't care. You haven't read Atomic Habits if you're saying that. And that's a great book, by the way. If you haven't read that one, read Atomic Habits. I believe James says in the book something to the effect of, we don't rise to the level of our expectations, we fall to the level of our systems. So he's not talking about discipline. He's talking about systems. And one of my systems is, I don't have alcohol in the house. I don't go to places where I could potentially have alcohol. You might say, well, that's not discipline. I don't care. I have those systems in place. And that's what works for me. Something else might work for you. But to your question, Sarah, sobriety's well. How can you support me on my journey? You're doing it just by asking the question, being engaged. That's powerful. If there's an episode you listen to that you like or think would resonate with somebody, shoot them a text. Just hit that share button, shoot them a text, say, hey, listen to this podcast. And that goes a long way in what we're doing here. And of course, the help that people need. Let's go down here to Operations Strong Dad. He says, how do you think people build community when everyone seems to let any opposing view keep people as far away as possible? Do you think it's necessary to have friends, especially close friends, that think differently than we do? Do you think you lose perspective if you only keep like-minded individuals in your circle? Operations Dad, Strong Dad, these are a lot of leading questions. I think you know the answer to these questions because the way that you formulated them, they're leading. I think you know the answer. Like, for example, do you lose perspective if you only keep like-minded individuals in your inner circle? You already know the answer to that. Another one here is, do you think it's necessary to have friends? I mean, come on, like, of course, especially close friends that think differently than you. Yeah, of course. We know we need to have friends. We know that we can lose perspective if we work in an echo chamber. And I'm not beating you up a little bit here, but I think you know the answer to these questions. And maybe these are rhetorical. Maybe you're just giving some advice in the form of a question. And I think you're right. I will say that. I think you're right. It is important to consider opposing views. I think when building a community, and this is one thing you mentioned, Operation Strong Dad, he says, how do you think people build community when everyone seems to let any opposing views keep people as far away as possible? Community is always built around a common interest or a shared objective. So if there's no shared objective, and actually this is the problem I see in our country today, is that we can have opposing views with people. I have no problem with that. But you know what I do have a problem with is that there's no shared objective with a lot of these people. You know, you take far right wing people and you take far left people, and like they're not even on the same playing field. Like let's dig into that analogy a little bit. Let's say you're going to play a football game. And a football game, a lot of people think is competition. It is competition for sure. But I think deeper than that, it's cooperation. It's cooperation. And let me explain what I mean. Two football teams decide that we're going to meet at a certain time on this field. And this field is a certain dimension. I believe it's 100 yards long. I believe it's 50 yards wide. And, you have the hash marks and the yardage markers in the end zone. And you have rules, right? Here, you have 4 downs to complete 10 yards. That's a rule. You can pass, you can throw. You need to have this many people in the line. Some people aren't eligible to catch. Some people aren't eligible to run. Some are blockers, some are catchers, some are throws, right? You have rules. And two teams come together and they say, you know what? In the spirit of competitiveness, but also in the spirit of cooperation, we're going to abide by these rules. And we believe in the rules so much that if we break the rules, we want to bring a third-party arbitrator to come in, a referee, and impose penalties if either one of us breaks the rules. That's cooperation. But there's a shared objective. And the shared objective is obviously to score more than the other team, to improve each other, to see who's the best. And so we cooperate in a meaningful and significant way. But just because we cooperate doesn't mean we have to do it the same way. So you might have one team that's a heavy running team. You might have another team that's a heavy passing team. Still cooperating, still rallied around the same objective to be better, to be the best athletes that we can be, but we see it differently. So there's no problem with seeing things differently. It's, are we going towards the same goal? And if we're not, then it's going to be pretty difficult to cooperate in any meaningful and significant way, and therefore it's going to be more difficult to build a community. So I think what's more important than worrying about how people think about things is to figure out what is their objective, what is their goal, what are they after, what are they trying to accomplish? Are they going the same direction as me? Because if they're going the same direction as me, then I do want differing perspectives. One thing we hear a lot is diversity is strength. No, not inherently, not necessarily. If I bring somebody, for example, into this organization who hates men, who hates masculinity, and wants to undermine it at every turn, does the diversity of the thought process strengthen the movement? Of course it doesn't. Of course it doesn't. Now, on the other hand, if I have somebody who believes in masculinity, who believes in advancing this mission, who believes in calling men up, and they see things a little differently than me, maybe they see the political climate a little different than me, maybe they come from a different spiritual background or a different cultural background, or maybe they come from a different country and they have different experiences, but they see it the same end result as me. Okay, now we're talking about diversity that's going to bolster and strengthen and foster our mission. This is where people get diversity wrong. I don't give a rip about diversity if we're going in different directions. I'm not interested in that because that hinders my growth and progress. I'm only interested in diversity to the degree that we're moving towards the same outcome. So we should find friends that think differently than us. We should have people in our circle who have different experiences, different beliefs, different cultural backgrounds. But we need to caveat that with the fact that they're moving in the same direction. Their outcome and objective is the same. The way they get there might be a little different. Hope that helps. All right, let's go to, this is jms.adventure, says how to start a t-shirt printing business without Amazon and not needing a bulk order. I'm going to do something real quick while I've got you guys on the podcast. So this is JMS Adventures. All right, so the first thing I did is I went over to his Instagram account, and this is Joshua, again, at jms.adventures, so you guys can check it out. And I see here that he has 258 followers. So I'm not going to beat you up too bad on that, but I'm going to tell you, if you want to grow a t-shirt business without Amazon, and what else did you say, and not needing a bulk order, you need to figure out a way to build up your social media account more than 258 followers. And maybe you're just getting started, so I'm not going to rip on you too bad here. But if you have 258 followers, and I don't know what your other platforms are, you're going to have a hard time building a t-shirt business because there's nobody to sell it to. And that's the problem. People think, like the Field of Dreams quote, if you build it, they will come. Bullshit. Hey, we are in an environment in our economics, in our culture, where you can go completely unnoticed and under the radar, even if you have the most beautiful, incredible, life-saving, groundbreaking, earth-shattering technology, if nobody knows who you are or what you do, then it doesn't really matter what the product is. So we need to get out of the like, oh, I have a great product. People should just know. They're not going to know. There's too much competition. You got Instagram, you got billboards, you got direct ads, you got email, you got Facebook, you got Twitter, you got YouTube, you got so many platforms, and people are so inundated and bombarded with information from other people that if you're like, well, I have a great product, I don't care. It's not enough. It's arrogant. It's arrogant to believe that just because you have a good product, that's enough for you to grow a business. You won't grow it. So when you're asking how do you grow a t-shirt business or any business for that matter, the first thing you need to do is build a compelling social media profile. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, I would say are the primary three. You can move to YouTube from there. You can consider podcasts. You can consider some of these more fringe social media accounts, but Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Get it? That's the trifecta. Okay. So if you don't have people following you, then something's happening and you need to figure out what that is. So you need to go through and I'm seeing your thing right now. I'm looking at it. And again, I'm just critiquing because you asked the question. I'm doing it from a place of wanting to see you win. I don't know what's going on with your Instagram account. Like you've got this, looks like a Corvette Stingray. Then you've got this picture of a building somewhere downtown, and it looks like maybe a fire or smoke is going on. And I voted picture, and then there's a cat, and then there's a cool picture of a Jeep. And like, I don't know what's going on here. What do you do? Like, what's the theme? What's the commonality? I see some like food with like tortillas and bananas and peanut. Like, I don't know what's going on. And again, this is not to rip on you. It's not to beat you up, but you've got to come up with a theme. If you were to go to my account, and I can just pull it up here real quick, like you're going to see pretty quickly what I'm about. And that might turn a lot of people off. I don't care about that. If it turns people off, good, because it's going to turn the wrong people off. But you can scroll through and figure out pretty quickly what we got going on. I've got a picture of me and my family. I've got a snippet of, navigating the midlife crisis, how to lead your business and family. Another one's You're Not Dead Yet, dating advice for men in the modern era, making the most of second chances. I've got a video here with George Foreman that I did, practicing the 4 virtues of stoicism. I mean, somebody could scroll through this in 10 seconds and they're like, yeah, I feel like I got a pretty good handle on what this guy's about. And they're going to love it, which is great, or they're going to hate it, which is also okay because I don't want to attract the wrong people. So let's get to your social media accounts and let's dig into those. And then once you have a following built around a singular theme, then we can figure out about t-shirts, because then you're going to actually have something to sell and somebody to sell it to. But there's all sorts of ways. I mean, you could talk with your local merchandise company and they can sell you 20 shirts. And then here's the beauty. You don't have to plop it up on Amazon. You can just put it on your Instagram account. And that's what I do. Every time I come up with new products, I just throw it on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and YouTube, and the places I am, and we sell it that way. So I don't do any business through Amazon, but I have an audience, and that's where you should start. All right. Let's scroll down. This one comes from Lone_Papa. He says, and this is a tough one, but how are you managing the grief of losing your marriage at this early stage? So if you've been following us for any amount of time, you know that over the past 9 months or so, I've been going through a divorce with my ex-wife, and she is my ex-wife now. People have asked, and we have finalized the divorce 2-3 months ago. And so how am I managing the grief of losing my marriage at this early stage? This is the advice I would give everybody else. And I've had people say to me, Ryan, it seems like you got over this quickly. It seems like you're back on your feet. And I want to tell you, like, I'm not over anything. All right, I'm not a person who takes anything in life flippantly. Like, everything is serious in my life. I'm trying to have fun, but everything has weight. From this podcast to me cleaning my house, to my failed marriage, to the way I raise my children, everything is significant to me. So getting over it is not something I plan on doing. But there is a way to manage the grief and the loss, and there is grief, and there is sadness, and there is sorrow, and there's frustration, and there's resentment to some degree, not a lot, but there's remorse and regret. There's all of those things. So here's what I give advice, or here's the advice what I give to men who are dealing with this. Number one is you've got to make yourself the project. Like, you've got to go to work and figure out where your deficiencies are and what you need to do. So I've gone into the gym, One of my deficiencies was succumbing to the temptations of alcohol abuse. So I've worked on that. Maybe pornography is an issue. Maybe gambling is an issue. Maybe poor money management is an issue. Maybe relationship with your food is an issue. Maybe you're undisciplined enough to go to the gym. But whatever it is, you probably know what it is, but you ought to start making that your project. Because the more you can take that energy and that sadness or sorrow or grief or remorse or regret and channel it towards productive outlets, the better off you're going to be. So get in shape. Get your finances in order, pick up the Bible, read the Bible, go to church, like all these things you already know you should be doing. Do those. Focus all of your attention on that. Number 2, pick up new hobbies, interests, activities, things that you normally would have said no to. I have my kids on a schedule, and I've told guys, and I think this is an interesting way to look at it. It used to be that I had my kids that I would do 50% of the duties 100% of the time. And now I do 100% of the duties 50% of the time. So that changes the dynamic in my life. That means I have anywhere from 2 to 5 days every single week where I don't have the kids. So what do I do in those moments? Do I mope around and do I cry and do I act like a, just a complete, lost soul? Or do I take that time and pour that into a hobby, pour that into a development of a new skill, pour that into friends and other maybe even romantic interests that I have? Like the more that you have that time, you have some freedom and flexibility to pour that time into something else. I've seen too many guys self-destruct and use that time to implode. You can't do that. We don't have that luxury. And you don't have that luxury because people are relying upon you. Your kids. And I don't know if, Lone Papa, if you're going through this right now or if you're just asking me personally, but if you have kids, guys, and you're going through a divorce, you can be sad. You should be sad. You should have regrets. You should really replay what happened in your marriage, as have I. It's hard. It's painful. But I have kids. I've got 4 kids, and I can't self-destruct because they are relying upon me as their father to step up and to show them an example of how a man steps out of a hole that he dug for himself. And that's exactly what they're going to get from me. It's exactly what they're going to see. The other thing I would say, and I think this is the last point I'll make on this one, is you better have some friends. Now, I'm not talking about female friends. I'm talking about male friends that you can work through some of this stuff with. I just sent a text out to some of my boys earlier, and I said, hey, guys, like, let's go to lunch. How about Tuesday? I think I said Tuesday at noon. Wednesday at 11:30 works for me. 11:30 work for the guys, so that's what we're going to do. Go out to lunch. Last week, I went golfing with some friends. I also had a little barbecue with some buddies. So, like, these are things that you should be doing. And they're going to distract you a little bit, which is nice, but they're also going to build you up into a place that you want to be and help you improve. I hope that helps. Let's go to next one. This one comes from Tyson Tomberlin. He says here, not a question, but just wanted to say my respect for you was high before, but sharing your struggles like you have recently has elevated that to a new level. Really excited to see where you go from here. Hang in there. Now, I included this question, and I skipped around on some, and I skipped over some questions completely, but I landed on this question not because I wanted to brag, but because I wanted you guys to know that having difficult things happen in your life, whether they're out of your control or whether they're your own doing, doesn't mean that you're disqualified from whatever it is you want to do. So many guys believe that. They believe, well, for a great example with the situation with me, I've been an outspoken advocate for marriage. I've been an outspoken advocate for treating your wife right and leading your family well. Like that's a core tenet of what we do. And in spite of that, I have a failed marriage. I'm a divorced man. I never thought I would say those words, but that's the reality of the situation. And so how can you be an advocate and even give advice with regards to how to build a thriving marriage and at the same time be going through a divorce? Well, the answer is that you have to be honest. We have to be humble. I'm not going to ever tell you, nor have I ever said that I have everything figured out. I don't. I have deficiencies. I have shortcomings. I have things that I need to work through just like you guys do. We all do. And I've been very open and honest about that. But the more honest we are about our struggles and our inefficiencies and our shortcomings, that can be a real inspiration for somebody who else is going through the problem. So you have a lot of guys who reach out and say, Ryan, I can't believe you're hypocritical. You've lost faith and credibility. And I understand that. I do. I really understand that. And so when guys say that, I try to be understanding of where they're coming from and empathetic to what they might be saying or experiencing. And I get it. I really do. But I have other guys who say, well, you should step down. You can't. No, I'm not going to step down. And you know why? Because now I have a unique perspective of what other men might be experiencing. And I've never lied about being perfect, but I have a unique experience that now I can take what I've experienced in my life as painful. And trust me, guys, there's been nights where I've literally cried myself to sleep because of the pain, the emotional and mental turmoil of failing in one of the most important aspects of my life. But I've had, for every one guy that says you should step down, I have 100 guys that reach out and say, man, I'm so glad you shared that. I'm struggling with alcohol abuse. I'm struggling in my marriage. My wife just said she wants to separate. My wife just said she wants to divorce. How the hell do I do this? You just saw it. You just heard it in the last question. How do I do this? How do I navigate this? I'm scared. I'm confused. I'm frustrated. I'm angry. I'm mad. What do I do? And every bit of advice that I gave before was trivial because I didn't know. The advice that I gave I hadn't put that to the test because I hadn't been in that situation. But you know what? Everything that I shared with you guys 3 years ago, I now know applies and works in a situation where a man is going through a divorce. How do I know? Because it's working for me. So now I have an experience, and it's my moral obligation and responsibility to share it with men who are going through the same problems. So he says, my respect for you was high before sharing your struggles like you have recently, but that has elevated that to a new level. Right. Because now you can see the humanity in it, and everybody loves an underdog story. I had one guy say to me, this was months ago, as I shared this stuff, he said, Ryan, this is a success story. You don't know it yet. You haven't seen it yet, but this is a success story. And I'm seeing that a little bit now. It just hasn't fully played out, but it is a success story, and it is going to be motivating, and it is going to be inspiring to another man who's going through the same issues. All right, I'm going to take a few more because I'm going to end at the top of the hour, and we got about 10 minutes. So that one is from Tyson Tomberlin. Let's go to BC. Okay, here we go. BC Hornbuckle. Here's what he says. It's a little bit of a longer one, but we'll go through it. Hey, Ryan, I just made an Insta follow to you and a few other positive role models. I'm in my mid-20s and married for almost a year. We own a house and both work decent jobs to pay all the bills and put a little money away. I don't love my job, so I've been looking for something different to do alongside the idea of starting up a side business. Your recent podcast and the success of a couple family members in their businesses have made me wonder what I could accomplish. Moving forward, how do I allow myself grace? I've gotten tired of hearing you have time and just be patient. I know those things, but I don't know how to do it in practice. Additionally, how do you recommend starting to work out? I've been in a couple fights, gotten married, worked 100 plus feet in the air with a harness on, and cared for a couple 1,000-pound livestock in the family farm, but stepping into a gym scares me. It shouldn't scare you, number one. But if it does, we'll talk about that. It's embarrassing. It's also not embarrassing, and I'll explain that. And I wouldn't know what to do with anything once I even got in the door. Thanks for the podcast. It's been helping me along since 2019. Let's make some real changes happen this year and not just listen. Look, I actually understand the embarrassment of walking into the gym the first time in maybe ever or a decade. I remember when I started doing CrossFit, and this was probably 2015, 2016. I'd gotten really fat, and I was at a parade, and they were opening a new CrossFit gym in the area here in southern Utah, and I took a flyer and I decided, okay, I'm going to go do this. And I remember walking in. I even have a picture walking in of me being 235 pounds and in a healthy weight. I sit around 185, so 50 pounds overweight. And man, I've seen that picture. I just look like a dope. I look lost. I look confused. I look fat. I look just unhealthy. And so that was embarrassing. So I understand that. But that's where it starts. I go to the gym now and I'm fit and I'm strong and athletic and I'm getting stronger every single day. I could still, lose probably at this point another 8 pounds right in there would get me into about where I want to be. And I feel good, but I see these people come in who some of them are severely obese. I don't think less of them at all. I mean, I'll notice. I'm not going to say I don't notice it, but I don't think less of that person. I'm like, damn, that person's here. That person's actually working harder than I am, right? Somebody who's 50 or 60 or 80 or 100 pounds overweight and still to the gym every morning when I go in, they're working way harder than me because I've already built the systems and the framework and the accountability, and I've already built that into place, and now it's just going through the motions. But the guy who doesn't have that guy's stronger even mentally than I am. So I don't think you need to be embarrassed. Now, there might be a jerk or two that you're going to run into who's going to treat you like shit because of that. But the overwhelming majority of people in a gym environment, and you have to realize this about a gym, like these are high quality individuals. Yeah, of course, there's some bad apples, but these are high quality individuals. I know that because they get up early and they go to the gym before their day starts. Like that's a pretty good indicator that this is somebody who wants to improve themselves. So I get it. I know where you're coming from. So what? So what? This is a big problem in culture, and I hate it. I despise it. This idea that if you're a little uncomfortable, you shouldn't do it. Or if you don't feel like it, well, just embrace who you are. Bullshit. If you're uncomfortable with where you are with your physical fitness, then maybe you ought to fix your physical fitness. If you're a little uncomfortable about your performance, maybe your performance is shit and you should be uncomfortable about it. Why in the world would you embrace that? Because the loser next door tells you should? I don't hate the loser next door. He's just a loser. Like that's objective information. So we got to stop listening to people like, oh, you have time. Oh, take it easy. Oh, just be patient. Love yourself the way you are. Oh, you should just be happy. Oh, but no. Start surrounding yourself with people who say, you know what? This is BC Hornbuckle. You're better than you are right now. I know you are. I've seen you be better. And I know you can be that again. And I'm going to call you up until you get to that point. You may not like me. You may not be happy about it. You may think I'm an asshole, but you know what? I care about you and I believe in you, and I care and believe in you so much that I'm willing to tell you the truth, which is you're not living to the level that you could. So what are we going to do about it? How are we going to fix this? So what I would say to you is surround yourself with people who inspire, motivate, uplift, guide, direct, instruct, and who are honest with you, even if it's painful. And then also with regards to going to the gym, pull up Instagram or YouTube and say, like first time gym exercise, and do that. Don't tell me you don't know what to do. You know what to do. There's information out there. It's free. It's available. You're like, I care about you. I really want you to win, but I fear that you're asking me what you should do at the gym because you're looking for some complex solution that you can use an excuse not to do. Just jump on YouTube today and just type in there 20-minute basic gym workout. You're going to find 10,000 videos on the subject. And then do the same thing tomorrow. And the same thing the next day. And then find the biggest, baddest mother effer in the gym and go up to him, the 6 balls, by the way, and go up to him and say, hey, you look strong. You look fit. You look like you know what you're doing. I'm just getting started. I'm trying to build my arms. I'm trying to show my abs. I'm trying to build my legs. I'm trying to build my chest, whatever it is, and say, you have any pointers for me? You know what that guy's going to do? He's going to say, hell yeah. I got some pointers for you. Let me show you. And he's going to take maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes. Maybe he spends all hour with you. And he's going to show you a regimen. But that takes balls. That takes courage. But if you do that, the idea of like, I don't know what to do, it's going to melt and fade away. All right, enough on that. I hope that doesn't come across as me like beating you up. It's not. I don't know you. I don't think, maybe I do, but I don't know you. I believe in you. I know you have what it takes because you're still here. And so now we got to do it. Let's go to Steve Likens 9. Do you ever find it difficult to find motivation? Do you ever want to quit doing your podcast? No and no. If you do, then I would say that perhaps you don't have a compelling vision for what you want to accomplish. And I think that's a big deficiency in a lot of men's lives. They don't have a compelling vision. You have to have vision, because if you don't have vision, then everything else that you do throughout the day just seems kind of trivial and nonsensical. But if you have vision, then everything that you do, even the things you don't like doing, are tied to the result of the mission you're trying to accomplish. So for example, I have a mission with regards to spreading the Order Man and Iron Council and what I want to accomplish. And when I send emails, although I don't like sending emails or spending an hour pouring through all the emails I get on a daily basis, I know that it's attached to the mission. And I know it's a critical and integral part to what we're doing. So I do it. Not because I need to be motivated to do it, but because I know it's required in order to achieve the objective. So if we don't have the objective, then everything else seems stupid. But if you have the objective and you can sync the activity to the objective, then everything else seems meaningful, even if it is stupid. Like emails or certain calls I need to make. I do it. No motivation necessary. Okay? So find out what your vision and your purpose is and link your activity towards that. Do I ever want to quit doing my podcast? No, never. Because I know this is what's required to accomplish the goal. Now, I also will say I like doing it, and we should like the things that we do. If I hated podcasting, like actually hated the physical act of podcasting, then I would probably need to find a different way to get the message out. But I like podcasting, and I like talking, and I'm never at a loss for words. A few times I have been, not very often. So this is a good medium for me. All right. Let's take two more. I'll try to do a rapid fire on this. So this one comes from Josh HD. Josh, let's see, where is it? Josh HD 5350. How did you get your son into lifting? Did he see it on TV or what? And how old was he? I didn't get him into lifting. In fact, if anything, I think he probably got me more into lifting than I got him into lifting. But he came to me one day and his mother, my ex-wife, and he said, hey, I'm not happy with my body, because he was a chubby little roly-poly. And he said, I'm not happy with my body. And I was glad to hear him say that, because I knew he wasn't, but he owned it. And instead of saying, oh, well, just this goes to our point earlier, just be happy. It's okay. Like this, everybody's at this stage. Like they're all kind of chubby. Like you should just be happy. Like, no, we didn't do that. I don't do that, because that's not true. So I asked him some questions. I said, why are you not happy? He's like, I don't know. I just feel fat. I said, okay, I understand that. I've been where you are. I didn't say it's okay. I said, no, I've been where you are. I understand that. So what do you want to do? He's like, I want to get strong and fit. Cool. What are you going to do? And at the time he had a football coach, Coach Sean Moore, who was coaching a couple of his friends in some powerlifting. And he said, well, I want to do powerlifting. And this is an important lesson for fathers, I believe, that if your kid comes to you and says, I want to do powerlifting, or I want to start painting, or I want to learn to play the guitar, or I want to learn how to do photography, or I want to learn how to race cars, or I want to learn how to build things, or I want to learn how to cook. If one of your kids comes to you and says that, you better find every single way possible and every tool at your disposal to facilitate that growth. If you say, well, that's expensive, or well, we don't have time, or, cooking, you really want to cook? What if we learned how to do this instead? Shame. Shame on you. Shame on me for doing that at times in my life. Our job as fathers is to facilitate growth in our children. And if you have one of your kids who wants to grow, even if it's in a way that you don't really necessarily resonate with, you better find a way to do it. I remember when my oldest son, who you're talking about now, was young. He's like, Dad, I really love animals. I had a veterinarian friend in town. Called him up. I said, hey, my son loves animals. He's really interested in how they move and work and the anatomy and everything else of animals, which isn't a big thing for me, but he was interested in it. And I told my veterinarian friend, I said, hey, do you mind if we just come in one morning and just shadow you? Just like look over your shoulder while you're doing things? He's like, yeah, for sure. Come on in. So I took my son in a couple hours. I think my son fed a chameleon. They were doing teeth extraction on cats or dogs, if I remember correctly. Just basic exams for dogs. And so we would come in and the doc would tell the people who brought their animals in, hey, these guys are just here shadowing and son's really interested in this. Do you mind? They said no. It was a great experience. because my son got to see a new side of it that he hasn't seen before. So if our sons and our daughters come up to us and say, I'm interested in this thing, facilitate it. Spend money, invest, research, pour into them. That's your job. If there's one job that you have, that's it. So to answer your question, he said, I really want to start lifting. So we got him a lifting. He's not going to learn much from me, but I invested in him by hiring a coach that could help him. And that coach has been just a tremendous man. His name is Sean Moore. He's in Maine. So, we're back here in Utah. He's getting married in the fall, I think in the fall, or later in the summer, fall. My son and my other children and my ex, they're going to Maine to see him because of that relationship they have. So I facilitated it, but I got out of the way because I didn't want to be the bottleneck in his growth. So I hope that answers that question. Let's go to, I'll take this one as the last one. I like this one. I don't like the question, but I like the answer to the question, of course, because I'm giving it to you. But this one comes from, I don't even know how to say it, Physicoi Mental. How do you cope with the quote, I'm too old to start over thoughts? Guys, please get this out of your mind. Let me give you an alternative perspective. What if you said, well, what if you played that out? I'm too old to do this. I'm too old to go to the gym. I'm too old to start a business. I'm too old to ask that woman on a date. I'm too old to improve in this aspect. I'm too old for that hobby. Okay, so don't do it. And then what's going to happen in 10 years is you're going to say to yourself, man, I really wish I would have started that 10 years ago. Like, play it out. Do you like where that thought process leads you? I'm too old to start things, so I'm not going to do it. Do you like where that thought leads you in life? Or does that feel bad? Because it feels bad, probably. And so, yeah, it sucks. Maybe you're 60 years old and you're like, shit, I wish I would have done that 30 years ago. Well, you didn't do it 30 years ago. You didn't. So get over it and do it now. Well, I'm just too old. Why are you too old? What do you mean? You're too old to follow your dreams? You're too old to learn something new? You're too old to experiment or to try or to exert yourself or to have fun, have joy, and what are you too old for? Yeah, maybe you're too old to join the NBA. That's not what we're talking about here. Maybe you want to start a new business and you're 65 years old. Okay. And, but I only have, 20 years left to live. Okay. And I don't care if you have 6 months to live. If it's meaningful and significant, then pursue it because it's going to bring happiness to your life for the next 6 months of your life. It's going to make you better. So the way I think you get over the I'm too old to do it is to play it out and say, okay, what if I believed this and I didn't chase my dreams? Would my life be better or worse? Well, it'd be worse. Of course it would be worse. And get over I should have done it 30 years ago. You're being delusional. You didn't do it 30 years ago. So drop it. Right? How do I get over past mistakes? You chalk them up as past mistakes. Oh man, I just wish I would have done something different. So do all of us. I think about that in my marriage. It's like, man, if I could start over, here's what I would do. Okay, well, I can't start over, but you know what I can start? The next woman that comes into my life. And there will be a next woman. And I can do it then. And I can learn. I can't do what happened 2 months ago or 2 years ago or 20 years ago, but I can do something different today. And that's a worthwhile pursuit, regardless of how old you are. Your life will be measurably better if you get over the I'm too old to start type mentality. Okay? All right, you guys. Fired up today. I'm excited about these questions. Great questions today, by the way. So again, to recap, if you guys would, please leave a rating and review. And also check out the Iron Council. Opens up in a couple of weeks. Orderman.com/Iron Council. Next week, I'll be back with Kip. Those are a little more dynamic because Kip brings a perspective that I don't always bring. And that's what's good about us is that, as I said earlier, same vision, same goal, same objective. Sometimes we see it differently. A lot of times we see it the same, but sometimes we see it differently. And you'll hear that next week. All right, guys, that's all I've got for you. We'll be back on Friday. Until then, go out there, take action, and become the man you are meant to be.